Dun, 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 dun. Welcome to a new episode of the Electrek podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by Seth Wintraub. How are you doing today, Seth?
I'm good.
All right, let's before we jump right in, let's give a quick thank you to our sponsor for this week's episode, Split Volt. The Split Volt splitter switch automatically shares power from your existing 240 volt dryer socket with your level 2 EV charger. You can learn more about it in the show note and the link in the show notes, but we're going to talk a little bit more about them later on the show also, because they have a pretty cool product that I think is useful to the EV community, and we thank them for sponsoring this week of the Electrek podcast. This week was pretty light on news, not any title giant news this week, but a few interesting items that we wanted to discuss, and I think especially a big one that probably going to have an impact for a while. But what that's going to do is I'm going to give us plenty of time to discuss you guys what you want to discuss in the EV world this week. So if you have any question for us, you can put them in the comment section right now on all of our on any app that you're watching. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and all that. So put the comment in the comment section. It can be about either of these any of these topics that are listed in the show notes, or any other topic in the EV community that you want us to discuss this week. All right. First off, Tesla FSD. So we've been talking how impressed we were with V12.3 whatever version you're at right now. And Elon, last week we discussed about Elon giving some kind of like framework for the upcoming FSD update, mainly 12.4 coming probably next week, and then 5 after that coming the week after. So a lot of exciting stuff coming. V12.4, Elon already like gave his normal hyperboles, mind blowing, and all that. We talked last week about Elon saying that there's gonna be no nags, no steering wheel nag, no alerts to put some torque on the steering wheel. That's apparently coming with the next update. So that's obviously a big change. Yeah, it's a significant change. Now he goes a step further and he says 12.4 goes to internal release next weekend. We already talked about that. Limited external beta next week. So that was this week. So this is going to be this weekend, internal release, external beta next week. Roughly 5x to 10x improvement in miles per intervention versus V12.3, which is what we're on right now. So obviously, if true, like we used to be, but we're not anymore people that just take everything that Elon says as fact. But if it is true, obviously it's a massive deal. Now, why I put an if on there is like, compared to what? Compared to 12.3, but Tesla never actually released any kind of miles per intervention data of 12.3. They just never did it. So we have some, crowdsourced data that's available out there. There's the FSD beta data website tracking that has been pretty useful. But again, a very limited set of data compared to Tesla's entire fleet that has FSD right now. But I guess we could take that and see what kind of improvement 12.4 comes in. If it comes close to a 5x to 10x, like even the fact that Elon says 5x to 10x, like that, those are giant difference. Like 5x to 10x, it's a wide range. So even the fact that he says that would point to me that he doesn't really know exactly.
Right.
Even though Tesla has to have this data, if he's talking about miles per intervention here, this is a data metric that they are tracking, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the hyperbole thing.
Yeah. Also, like, and I understand every time we talk about miles per intervention and disengagement and stuff like that, people are like, this is not like perfect data to assess the quality of a self-driving system. I agree, but there's not a lot of better data point, better metrics to follow. Is just, aside from just it performing and you using it, you have to look at the data and see, okay, when does it fail? And it fails when there's an intervention or there's a crash, and hopefully there's an intervention before there's a crash too. So the miles per intervention are useful. I know that some people like to use like critical intervention rather than just regular intervention, in the sense that sometimes the driver is going to intervene even though the FSD system could have found a way to continue uninterrupted, but people felt uncomfortable, unsafe, or whatever. So I think miles per intervention, for the most part, is right, just especially at the scale that Tesla is in right now, where these outlier circumstances where someone is intervening when they shouldn't, or when they didn't absolutely have to, I should say, because you should intervene whenever you feel like you should. I think that should be clear. But so I think that the size of Tesla's data set should be able to work those situations out. But we don't even have that comparison right now. I'm sure that if if Tesla can actually deliver on that 5x to 10x that Elon is predicting, they will release that data for the first time, and they probably will limit the data to maybe like the V12 only, like V12 forward. Because I think if they release the historical data of Tesla's mile per intervention, we might get some pretty interesting surprises of the data going worse at times, even though Elon was saying publicly things like, it's going to be mind-blowing and everything, and then this update is actually terrible on the miles per intervention. So I think now that they have V12, they have AI end-to-end, no training compute constraint anymore. I think going forward, if this step works, they're going to start releasing the data. I wouldn't be surprised. Not very transparent, but if it actually works, if there's improvement, I can get past the lack of transparency in the past. Because this sounds like a crazy improvement, 5x to 10x, but I don't know about you, Seth, but I know you're a technologist and you're following this space closely, but it feels like there's a lot happening with AI where it's moving like crazy fast right now.
Absolutely. Like, it feels like AI is moving very fast. On the other hand, every time I hear Elon say anything about FSD, I feel like it's Lucy teeing up the football for Charlie Brown. Like, it's so I have both of those things in my head right now, right? I know AI is moving very fast. I know like there's a lot of jumps, and my own Tesla is actually driving a lot better than it did, a month ago. So those are data points I have, but I also it's been 7 or 8 years of Elon saying this one's going to be the good one, like, so I have both of those things in my head, and I don't know which to believe, or probably somewhere in between. Also, like, I have to say, like, I don't forgive Tesla for not providing data up until this point. I feel like that is something that they should be doing, and if that's if this is 5 or 10x, like, that means that we need to see what they started from to believe that 5 or 10x, because right now, they're just going to put out a number and say, well, this is 5 or 10x or whatever.
Yeah.
So what is 5 or 10x from what to what?
Yeah, I think they're going to release it for 12.3 if they do achieve it, but again, that's only if they do. So that's 12.4, and it's apparently coming next week. Like, obviously we've heard that one before, but if they are talking about next week, it should come in the next few weeks at least. So we're going to see it. Now, he also mentioned briefly 12.5, which he now puts in late June, so just over a month from now. And he says they will also see major improvement in MPI, with miles per intervention, and is single stack, no implicit stacks on highways anymore. So I know that's confusing, like, because they were supposed to do the single stack in V11, but my understanding is that it is single stack. It was single stack in V11, but with the neural nets end to end with V12, they went. That was only transferred back to city street and not highways. So the highways like a sort of stick to V11, or a V11 based neural net, or a neural net that was released with V11. That's basically my understanding. So now it with 12.5, they're gonna remerge that again, so they are both gonna be in a single stack again. I don't know if I explained this correctly, but that's my understanding so far. All right. Speaking of stacks, software stacks. You also have hardware stacks, and this one is a new one that looks like Tesla is testing. So this Model 3 looks like I'm having some issues here with some jumping. I don't know if you see that on the
No,
screen.
it's still.
It's still okay. Might be on my side. Okay. Anyway, so this
no.
Model 3, then now it's doing it again.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's happening. Let me restart my screen sharing. Maybe. Just give me a second. Now it should get better. I don't know, maybe it's the top comment thing that's missing with the Twitter
Yeah, it's
post.
possible.
Okay, anyway, I don't need to have the actual pictures. So let's move the pictures right away.
Okay.
So this Model 3 has a manufacturer plate, so we know it's owned by Tesla. It's operated by Tesla, and it has new camera setups. So this is the fender, the front fender camera. Normally, it's embedded inside the fender. Now it's popping out here. It's not clear if it's supposed to like pop in and out, or it's just like standard like that. It's not. That's also not, doesn't mean that this is being tested for specifically a Model 3. It's also maybe the angle of the camera testing for another vehicle and a future vehicle or a new version of an existing vehicle. We don't know, or it might just be testing also like just new cameras, no actual hardware. This one too is, instead of being normally, if you remember, the camera is just over the plate, but it's not over the little curvature here. This time it's completely over, so different angle for the camera, for the rear camera. And finally, the B pillar camera is the biggest difference. Instead of being in the B pillar, it's now a little bit further out, now inside of the window. But obviously, that wouldn't be the goal of the
Yeah, I don't think that's
setup.
the end product.
No, there's two main theories here. It could be, well, like kind of three really. Tesla could be just using this setup for a ground truthing, so to compare the data of the current system. And Elon has talked recently that Tesla doesn't plan on using LiDAR going forward for ground truthing and all that. So that might be it. Or it might be, like I said, a completely new setup for Tesla to use these specific angles of cameras and these new camera hardware on a new vehicle, like the next generation vehicle coming with the robo-taxi, for example.
That makes sense.
Yeah. All right, that was a big move this week from Tesla. Tesla launched in the US. So we talked about Tesla doing that in China last month. But in the US, they launched 0.99% APR financing for the Model Y for a limited time. So it's just for this month, I think.
By May 31st.
Until May 31st. New Model Y in the US, if you have good credit, you get 1% APR. Compared to 6% isn't generally what people are offering right now. So Tesla is the one discounting that themselves. So if you get, here's an example, if you get $4,250 down, you get a 72-month loan. That adds up to monthly payment of $603 for the Model Y. That's the base Model Y here, the new one that was launched a week or two ago, the long-range rear-wheel drive. It comes down to, like I said, 603. But if you have a single income of less of $150,000 or joint income of $200,000 or less, you can get access to the federal tax credit that brings it down to $500 a month. And then if you're coming off of a gas car, you can add your gas saving to that too, and you're basically driving for free. Not necessarily, but you know what I mean. It's very attractive. Obviously, like this is something that Elon has been complaining on for a long time. He blamed Tesla's entire demand issues on macroeconomics and especially the high interest rates. So this is a good occasion to see if that's true. Obviously, it's Tesla that's going to eat the difference anyway, so it's not going to be good for Tesla necessarily. But we'll see if that Elon was right at least about the interest rate, which I think for sure it's to a certain degree. I think Tesla's demand issues are not just that, but I think it's a big part of it, and it makes sense because like that's like six. I think just for this specific move, it's like $6,000 or something that
Wow.
you're saving
Yeah,
in
it'd be
interest.
almost crazy to buy it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Just
it's free money. Like
right.
if interest rate right now
Put
are
the money in the bank.
6%, yeah, and someone is offering you 1%, like it's almost free money. Like you have to take it. So yeah, if you're in the market and you are waiting for just interest rate to come down, this might be your time to get it.
Yeah, and so basically Tesla's eating a $6,000 ish amount on that, which is significant. Like that's going to
Yeah,
hit their bottom line a little bit, their
a little bit.
their
Yeah.
margins.
Yeah, something that came out today. Tesla announced that they are dropping their Steam support. So this is something that was also launched in late 2022. First on the Model S and X. The Model S and X have this new gaming computer inside that is reported to be better than like the latest consoles and whatnot. And Tesla decided to do this Steam beta, this native beta Steam app that allow you to have access to Steam's entire library. So if you bought a game on Steam, you can play it on your computer and you can play it on your Tesla too. Cool idea. We know that Tesla has been big on video games. They've been big on improving entertainment inside the vehicle, especially ahead of self-driving. They know that when self-driving arrives, entertainment inside the vehicle is going to be more important because you're going to have more free time inside your car. They're a bit early with that, obviously, but there's the concept that, okay, if you're stopped at charging for a charging station, for example, you can jump into a quick game. Personally, and I thought it was, okay, it's a cool idea to have, but if you really want to be gaming inside your car, especially gaming at the level of like a Steam game, and I know this Steam has like every game on there, so it's like there's smaller like indie games, but there's also like AAA, very performance demanding games. If you want to play that inside your car, I feel like a separate device is like as a gamer, like a separate device is useful. Whether you want to like carry your gaming laptop into your Tesla, or even just like a Steam Deck, for example, the little mobile device, and there's competitors to Steam Deck too. Those are going to be better gaming experience inside your car than with the Tesla. It took forever, like the 2 or 3 times that I tried using Steam Beta. I was able to launch a few games, but it was taking forever to load, and just not a great gaming experience in general. Have you ever used your Steam beta on your no, you don't. No, you don't have
On
it on the
Model Y.
Model Y. Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody told me something one time that kind of ruined the Tesla like dashboard experience. They were like, Tesla's really not doing much that a $500 iPad doesn't do. Like you
Mm-hmm.
could just have a $500 iPad, you get Netflix, Hulu, all the stuff that most people use. You got games, you got maps, you got all the stuff, and that's $500. And Apple upgrades it every year, and it's fine. So I don't know. Like I think this was kind of I mean, it's actually cool. Like my kids love playing games on the Tesla, but it's just like, well, you could just double-sided tape an iPad to the dashboard and get most of this, as good a gaming experience, as good a, graphics card, what stuff.
Yeah, even I would argue even better.
Right.
All right, we can talk a little bit about our sponsor, SplitVolt.
All right. This week's episode is sponsored by SplitVolt, the company behind the cream of the crop in new electric vehicle home power accessory technology, the SplitVolt Splitter Switch. This new EV home appliance safely and automatically shares power from your existing 240-volt dryer socket with your level 2 EV charger. Just plug it in with your dryer and EV charger. That's it. Save thousands by skipping installation of a new level 2 circuit and using SplitVolt to automatically and safely power your EV charger. Don't be fooled by cheap copycats lacking safety certifications or critical features such as internal circuit breakers. Trust SplitVolt, a U.S. company, innovator, and market leader. Visit the company's website at splitvolt.com to learn more or check out their mobile level 2 EV chargers and other EV accessories. That's splitvolt.com. Thank you for sponsoring to SplitVolt.
Yes, thank you, SplitVolt. All right, the Chevy Equinox EV has finally started deliveries this week. It's been probably the most anticipated of the Ultium next generation EVs from GM. It's the cheaper one, obviously, and but the cheaper one, the one that are being delivered right now, are not the cheapest version. They're not the $35,000 version. So this is the starting the pricing chart for the Equinox for all the trims, and right now only the 2RS is being delivered. So this one here, starting at roughly $45,000. The 35,000 is coming later this year, I think. But for now, the deliveries are starting for the $45,000 version, and it is you can qualify to the federal tax credit for it. So you gets a lot cheaper. The four-wheel drive packs 213 horsepower of and the all-wheel drive version. Yeah, that's right. It's only 288. That's I remember the all-wheel drive version was a little bit underwhelming for that. 319 miles of range for the EPA estimate. 285 if you go with the all-wheel drive version. Really, if you don't need the rear-wheel drive, like the front-wheel drive, I'm not the biggest fan of front-wheel drive though. I prefer the rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, I kind of wish they only had rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. I don't know why front-wheel drive is a thing with EVs.
Yeah, it's kind of a legacy of the gasoline era.
Right.
But yeah, it's going to be a new AV to track. We're going to see how the ramp up goes. Obviously, GM, that's been the thing that has been lacking. They have some great electric vehicle programs, but they haven't been able to deliver the volume, to produce the volume and deliver the volume that they promised by saying that they're going all in with electric vehicle, basically. So we're going to keep a close eye to the Chevy Equinox. We have, it's the Blazer that he tried this week. Do we have
Scooter's trying the Equinox and the Silverado RST.
Right now, right? Okay, he's doing so. Earlier this week, he did the Blazer, and now he's doing the Equinox and Silverado. That's right. So we're gonna have full reviews on those coming in the next few days. So stay tuned for that. But then after that, I want to track the ramp up of that vehicle. I think if there's one that can be like a high volume one, it's this one.
Yep.
All right. We also have a new version of the EV6. Is it a 2025 version or new model year?
I mean, it's 2024 right now, and they just released it, so they're probably going to call it 2025.
Yeah, it's a bit too early for that. So you have this new facelift. It looks pretty good. I actually saw one in white. I don't know if we don't have the page. Was it or was it gray? Was it this one? I saw one in white that was really stunning with the facelift. But I mean, I've been a fan of the EV6 design already, so this facelift is not. Yeah, it's kind of significant. It's not. Yeah. I think it works.
Yeah, that front light is pretty interesting. It's kind of just like a spiral, like a triangle spiral. Yeah, Kia is really going up market. They, Kia used to be kind of a, I don't want to say like not a garbage brand, but it was kind of a low end brand, and now it kind of feels like they're, mid to upper tier brand.
Yeah, I mean, I've been impressed with Kia and Hyundai lately. Like even like their design in general, and I know we don't talk about gasoline, but I haven't. Have you seen like the new Santa Fe, for example?
No, I haven't.
It looks pretty good. They're doing some good work right now. So the EV6 facelift feature a bigger battery of 84 kilowatt hour, up from 77.4. And then that enables 307 miles of range, 494 kilometers, but that's based on the Korean standard, which I don't know if they use WLTP there. I'm not even sure they do. But generally, it's a little bit more lenient. They don't have like cabin temperature control included in that. But if you compare to the same Korean standard, it's up from 295 miles. So you have a good 12 miles more miles on that on that new battery. Charging at Kia and Hyundai has always been very good, 10 to 80% in 18 minutes, 350 kilowatt. I don't think that has changed.
No,
well, 350 kilowatt doesn't change, but I think the 18 minutes also didn't change. They're betting heavily on the CarPlay, Android Auto stuff. I'm not familiar enough with the interior to see a big difference with the interior lift
Yeah, I mean, it's the same
facelift.
display. I think maybe
Yeah.
the center console might be a little bit upgraded.
hmm Do we have new pricing? Okay, so it's coming in June. In Korea, it starts at $40,000, but that doesn't tell us much.
Right.
$38,000 with tax incentive. Yeah, they have pretty good incentive in Korea.
hmm It's a pretty good car.
Yeah, it's very popular here. I see a ton of them in
Mm.
Quebec right now. I see a ton of EV6 and I see a ton of Ioniq 5. We haven't seen the EV9 much here yet. All right, this is a big news that's going to affect, I think, the market for a little bit or while. We knew it was coming. We talked about it a few weeks ago, but the Biden administration has officially this week quadruple the tariffs on Chinese EVs coming into the US. So from 25% to 100%. So now, if you buy an EV built in China in the US, you're paying the cost of the car plus 100% tax on it, basically,
Crazy.
or or whatever
You double the price.
yeah, double the price and double the cost at least on the manufacturer side, and then if they want to give that back to you or not, which normally that's what they do. That's what is happening here. Obviously, this is something that a lot of companies have been adopting, including not a lot of companies, a lot of countries, including China. So this is like this war between China and the rest of the world, where the protectionist laws are being implemented, and in China they force people to work with Chinese companies, foreign automakers to work with Chinese companies to sell in the market. Though some notorious example have been able to get around that, like Tesla, but for the most part, it is the case. And the US has been particularly scared by it because the US auto industry is probably one of the last few major manufacturing industry in the US other than like defense. So we need it in the US to survive. And the Chinese automakers are producing some really impressive stuff right now. Well, they're pretty everything that they taken over the world with manufacturing. Like their manufacturing it's not cheap anymore. It's very good, or it can be good. It can be cheap and it can be good. Like they can do everything really, and they can do everything with electric vehicles too. And they're doing some cool things that are coming. And the U.S. thought that 25% was not enough to prevent them from taking over the U.S. market, and I think they might have been right.
That's a great point because we've always wondered why the Volvo EX30 would be priced so low, even with that 25%. But like, I think that's pretty true for like all the cars. Like all those cars could probably come over to the US, and even with the 25% tax on them, would be very competitive.
and 25% tax and no access to the tax credit too.
Right.
So
That's a good
so
point.
you start off 25% more expensive and $7,500 down versus the competition that's being built in the US. So they already had a giant advantage, and the Biden administration look at this and like they were like, nope, not enough.
Not
We
enough.
need 100%, and they
Yeah.
might have been right. When I say they might have been right, like they might have been right if your goal is to protect the auto industry in the U.S., which I think is a valuable goal, obviously. But I'm also a big free market guy, and I think that I would want to have access to these Chinese electric vehicles in the U.S. So kind of a bit torn on that, where
Well, I would also add that the Chinese government has been subsidizing the Chinese auto market for so long, and they've been kind of just this whole ramp
yeah,
up of like getting massively cheap vehicles, like building the supply chain so that the
hmm
economics of scale makes sense. I mean, China just doesn't have like a magic formula to make EVs cheap. What they do have is like scale. They
yeah.
have like all the supply chain like all in house. They don't have to go across the world to get stuff. And they're ahead. Like they're clearly ahead, especially on low cost vehicles. So what do you do in that case? Because what we should have been doing in the last 10 or 20 years is saying, oh, they're spending all this money getting their supply chain for electric vehicles like
Mhm.
really tight, we should be doing that same thing, if not more. But
Mhm.
we had Trump and all the other stuff. So
Yeah, and so you glossed over it to be fair, but uh, that's exactly it. Like if Biden did it, but in the last few years, you have to give him credit for that. Like the IRA, the
mhm.
Inflation Reduction Act, maybe didn't reduce inflation that much, but it did actually help create, or at the very least greatly accelerate, the creation of a supply chain for electric vehicle in the US and in the broader North America too, because the way it's set up to boost the allies of the US also, to be fair. So it's not completely just a protectionist act, it also boosts the allies, because we are benefiting from it too in Canada, for example, where there's been a lot of investment just near where I live of suppliers for like GM and stuff like that. So it makes sense on that front. So you have to give him credit for that. Like now, there's been a ton of investment to do it, but it takes so much time. Like you said, the Chinese have been doing it for decades before us, and it's paying off right now. And we can actually, I think the next article is an example of that, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, our last
Neo.
article is on the Neo Onvo. So Onvo is like a new sub brand that they're launching, a cheaper sub brand. And today they are not today, this week they unveiled the Onvo L60 EV. It's a Model Y size EV, size and also
Shape.
profile looks very familiar to the Model Y, which I see people like Tesla fans being upset by that, but when you make a car that becomes the most popular car in the world, that's what happened. Like
Yeah.
Tesla made a great car that has become the most popular, the best selling car in the world. People are gonna copy that because people want to have the best selling car in the world. So, and when I say copy, it's like it's not a copy. It's like inspired by it greatly, but also like it's basically the same size also. So
Yeah, and there's
they
tons of
know that.
other CUV size vehicles out there that they could also be considered copied.
Exactly. Well, yeah, we know that this format works. So if it works, like, all right, let's use this format basically. Um, but let's talk a little bit about the specs on this thing. Yeah, they think this is going to be a model for like 20,000 units a month. So that's it's a volume vehicle. Uh, so yeah, we talked about the size. Okay, here are the specs. Here, you have it. The cheapest one is a 60 kilowatt hour version of the vehicle. Gets 341 miles, 555 kilometers, but that's on CLTC standard. It's probably closer to 280, short of 300 miles, I would think, which is like decent. That's $30,000, the equivalent of $30,000. So very good. Then you have a 90 kilowatt hour version that they haven't announced the pricing. Okay, we can compare, for example, the Model Y rear wheel drive gets very similar range. Again, on the CLTC, so at the end of the day, it's going to be a similar range through real world range, and that's 34,600. So we have a $4,000 difference here. It's significant before incentive. Then they have a 90 and 150 kilowatt hour version. 150 is probably that new semi-solid state battery that we talked about a few weeks ago. That's TBD for the pricing on it. It's going to be over 1,000 kilometers, 600 miles on it. But you have a mid-range 90 kilowatt hour version that's going to get over 400 miles. That's also to be determined. Um,
Yeah,
what else is
to
interesting?
continuing on that scaling thing, like I don't know if Tesla gets enough credit for knowing that, a lot of car companies will release like 12 different cars, right? But Tesla spends all their time on basically the Model 3 and the Model Y and now maybe Cybertruck, but like and those cars are pretty sparse inside. Like they've taken a lot of like expense out of the cars. And I don't know that they get enough credit for like knowing like, hey, we need to really make this car cheaply. We need to scale up, battery production. We need to get the economics of scale up. And outside of China, I don't know that anybody else is really doing that besides Tesla, maybe Hyundai, Kia, but um, that's that's kind of the big deal right now.
Yeah, I mean, you see, these are highly complex product. Making them cheap is very difficult. And even like cheap, we can argue what it is, but $30,000. I think the average sell price in the U.S. right now is like $48,000, something like that. So it is, you know, not arguable that these are cheaper than average vehicles, and they are, typically top of the technology out there right now. Like
Right.
it's hard to argue that too. I mean, unless you want to go with like the celestic, like hand built stuff and
Oh
all that,
gosh,
but
yeah,
like, yeah, those things are not really moving the needle for EV adoptions.
for sure not. I
Yeah.
don't even know if like have they ever released like has anybody bought one of those Cadillac Celestiques?
Yeah, I think that like they're using the kind of like a Ferrari type like distribution model
Right.
where I think like you have to, get an invite almost to get buy the car. It's not
Right.
as cut and dry. But yeah, that's it for the articles this week. We can jump into the comment section right now. If you
All
guys have
right.
any question for us, you can put it in the comment right now. We're gonna get to it in a few minutes. We already have a few to get through.
All right. OKS Film says Model 3 2021, sharing my gripe. Even though I end up getting used to it, I always regret updating to the latest software update. I feel that most of the UI was very good, but then I have to get used to it again. That's true. A lot of Tesla's software updates, there's some UI changes that are not expected, and you're doing the update right before you're driving, and you don't have time to do that. I get, like Teslas are way more different per update than other cars. Other cars will, their software updates are almost unnoticeable.
Yeah, I've seen some people having a gripe with the latest UI changes that happened like over the last year or two. Personally, I haven't had much problem with it, but you're not the first person I've heard saying that they didn't like it.
All right, Spikes 43 question: has Rivian said anything about improving their driver assistance? It seems like they are not equipped to advance this internally. They have talked about it quite a bit, but it's just not. So you're right. I think that's a good assessment. They're not moving nearly as fast as Tesla. I mean, I would even say like not as fast as Ford or GM. Like I think
Hmm.
Rivian's. I think they have other fish to fry. Maybe with their money issues and trying to break even. I think maybe they're not spending as much time on self driving as other vehicles. It works. It works pretty well on freeways, but it's more like traffic aware cruise control than full self driving kind of experience.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I wonder if Rivian would be open to work with somebody else on that, like because they obviously Rivian right now needs to focus on driving down costs
Right.
of their current vehicle program and work on, you know, successful launch of the R2, and that also be, profitable, or at the very least like significant like gross margin on it. So it would make sense for them to work with to focus on that and offset that to someone else, which is what is going to happen anyway. I think with a lot of companies, like they're gonna have to license I think autonomous driving to others. I don't think that every single automaker is going to solve self driving. So that can be Tesla. I don't know if it's going to be likely with Rivian. I think Rivian is like positioning itself as like a tamer version of Tesla without like a maverick CEO that uh, potentially unstable.
Right.
So I don't think they're going to do that. But you know who comes to mind? Comma AI.
Oh
I
yeah.
really like I really like what Comma AI is doing lately. Like they've been like quietly having like I see Comma AI as like the Android of self driving to Apple to Tesla's Apple of self
Hmm.
driving. Like Tesla is very much like hardware, software. Even though they've been open to license both of those to other automakers, they very close hardware software combination. While um, obviously, Comma AI is like we can basically deliver what Tesla currently delivers, short of FSD, into any other car through a telephone-like device plus a cable. Like that's what they're doing, which is very impressive. And by doing that, by delivering sort of the autopilot with that, they are doing what Tesla has been doing for a long time, which is gathering the data to and the training set to train potentially a full self-driving system, instead of just an ADS system that you're doing. I don't think they're going that far in their, they're being a little bit careful in the way that they're presenting their product, but I do think that probably is the ultimate goal of Karma AI. And what I've seen from them is really impressive so far, with the limited, deployment of their system, and much smaller team than Tesla, obviously. So I would like to see them work directly with the OEMs, like Rivian in the future.
Yeah, I mean that's their goal, right? That's the idea behind Comma AI is to eventually license their software out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an auto manufacturer and you have you're behind and you're thinking to yourself, all right, should I go with my competitor Tesla, or should I go with this company that's only doing self-driving? So I think that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But is what's his name still there? The
He's still part of the
Geohot
George
or
Hutz. George Hutz.
Yeah.
Yeah, George is still. I don't think he's president now. I don't think he's like completely on the day to day, because he has this tiny box company that he's doing too. That he's trying to make a box for AI that like everyone can have their personal AI.
Yeah.
So he's doing that too at the same time. So I know he's still involved with Come AI, but I don't know the depth of his involvement. But I think his vision for it to have be the Android of self driving to Tesla's Apple, I think that's still very much going on. So.
All right, Mike the Car Geek, with the Chinese ministry approved next step for FSD, the stock popped. Tesla needs to get a U.S. State Department of DOT Texas to approve Tesla for driverless testing.
I think you're jumping a little bit to the gun here, Mike. First of all, the Chinese ministry approved next, okay, well, you did say next step, so okay, I think that's fair. You said, because it's not exactly like an approval that they give. Like, from what I've heard from the Chinese media, it's like an unofficial, conditional approval that they receive right now. Basically, Elon has established a kind of, with his last trip, Elon and his team, I should say, some kind of track to get FSD, supervised FSD approved in China, possibly. So, which is obviously great news for Tesla. So that's what I think is there. I was partly encouraged with the last earning calls, with Tesla sort of talking about the regulatory process to get a real full self-driving system approved in the U.S. But I don't think, Mike, it makes sense to equate what what happened in China with getting approval in the U.S., because FSD, supervised FSD, is already approved all over the U.S. So you don't need a state to do it. You would need a state to approve a true, like you said, driverless system, which has nothing to do with what the Chinese just did. So that I think the stage is just not there yet. And the way that they talked about it in their last earning calls was more about we saw what Waymo did, we saw what Cruise did. We're gonna follow the regulatory path to it. So that's what I heard from Tesla last time.
All right, moving on. Where is Seth? Who is that young kid? Yeah, I shaved. Tech guy. Santa Fe is sister brand Hyundai. Oh, Santa Fe is.
I thought Santa Fe is a model, of the model of Hyundai.
But I think you might have said Kia Santa Fe and not Hyundai Santa Fe, or I don't
know. Maybe I said that. Maybe I misspoke.
All right. Skeptic says, did you guys already talk about the Aptera securing some kind of funding? I did notice that on Facebook, but it, with Aptera, they're just trying to make it to the next month or the next 2 months or whatever.
Yeah, and we did write an article on this when it came out, but I talked a little bit about it when it first came out, and I was just, I don't know if Scooter managed to get a little bit more information, but I was just not impressed with what they announced, the way they announced. Okay, so they're working with this new company. Well, not a new company, but they're working with to have funding by this private bank, this private financial group called US Capital. And all they did is that they announced that they're going to work with them for the next step of funding. So that's all. They hadn't announced like any kind of official like funding round. They said that we're working with U.S. capital, which I don't know them very well, to secure the funding to get to production. So it's not really like a huge news, but until they actually announce some kind of funding, I think that's going to be a bigger news.
All right. There are reasons, including national security, to protect the North American auto industries from being destroyed by Chinese car makers. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good point for a couple of reasons. One is, obviously we want that industry to be something that we can do ourselves, but also like, when inevitably we get into another big war with somebody, we want to have the ability to like make, war machines, I guess. I don't know. That seems kind of weird, but if you don't have the ability to make vehicles, like that's just not a good way to be living your life.
Yeah. Well, I think we need maybe like ships and planes to make. I don't think we're gonna really get like another war fought by tank. Like I guess
That's probably true.
I think you're probably referencing like the fact that the GM started making tanks in
Right,
World War
right.
II, for example. Like so that's why we would still need that production capacity to switch it to. Yeah, I just don't know how much. Like I think we need like shipyards. I know like China has like 300 times the number of shipyards that the
Oh.
US has now. So I think ships and planes are probably more important. But yeah, I do understand. I don't understand that point.
Tech Guy says China makes stuff at a loss. I think he meant to say at a loss until there are no competitors. I mean, it kind of feels that way sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like with the electronics market, the e-bike market, batteries, like they just they just come in at a low price until all the competition globally is gone, and then they own the market. And I wouldn't just say that there's a loss, but I would say that China has, just from its domestic market, it has the kind of scale, with the 1.3 billion or whatever people that, it's like 4 times bigger than the U.S. market, just
Mm-hmm.
the domestic market. So it's bigger than Europe and the U.S. and Canada combined. So
Mm-hmm.
just the scale there is just nuts, and obviously the government's making a lot of overtures to there's something like China 2025 or something that they want to dominate a bunch of industries.
And they are buying EVs there too. Like so,
Yeah.
not only the market is huge, but they're also adopting EV at a faster rate than the US. So it is positive for their domestic EV industry also. So
Yeah.
it's an ecosystem that works.
All right. Raman says, what we need is a total FSD accountability under all conditions. It can pull over with hazard to hand over. Human intervention is unacceptable.
I mean, I do think that there's going to be a system that's going to pull over and start the hazard if there's a need for it. Yeah, I mean, I talked a little bit about that on the space that I did yesterday. I was talking to you earlier, said, but I do see, even though I'm way more optimistic than ever now on FSD, I think that we are pretty close to it with great advancement in AI. I do believe that Tesla still has some liability issues with some promises that Elon has made. Like he said a few times on the record that Tesla's going to achieve level 5 on the current hardware, which everyone that's lived in the Northeast or any place that has snow will agree that this is not possible. So there's going to be a need for human intervention. You see, human intervention is unacceptable. I don't think that Tesla can deliver anything more than level 4 on the current hardware 3 and most likely hardware 4 also. So yeah, there's going to be some human intervention, but still, it's a liability. I'm sure there's going to be lawsuits and all that, but ultimately, I think is the positive is going to outweigh the negative on that front, because if you solve FSD and future cars going to be able to be level 5 and level 4 is still super useful on this current vehicle, it's not exactly what Elon promised.
Yeah. All right. Most Chinese manufacturers don't make a profit, so some won't be around in a few years. Tesla are a safe bet.
I mean, have you heard of BYD?
Yeah. I think that is wishful thinking, but we'll see, I guess. Daniel DeYoung says, does the hopefully temporary supercharger uncertainty make an FSD licensing deal less likely?
I mean, apparently Tesla is talking to one specific automaker about FSD. So I don't know the level of relationship they have with that automaker, but yeah, I mean, it is a little bit worrying when you have. That's one of the things that I hear that the Elon fans say a lot about, like this vote coming up and everything. That a lot of the problem with this Tesla price right now, Tesla stock and Tesla as a company, is the uncertainty of Elon might leave the company if he doesn't get his stock compensation. What about the uncertainty that Elon being there creates? Like, there's that too, and that's one of it. Like, people that work with Tesla are like, hey, they just fired like an entire team to prove a point. Like, it's not, it's there's some uncertainty that comes with that. So yeah, you have a point there, Daniel. um it's it's a factor, I'm sure. Tesla had to do a bunch of damage control with its suppliers and its contractors related to the supercharger network and the charging network. Just
Yeah,
after
it's
that, we shared some of
like an
those
unforced error,
communication.
man.
Yeah, you wanna work with like someone like that after that? Like, it's they're gonna lose some. There's gonna be things that are gonna fall through the cracks, and people that are gonna go, you know what? Like, I'll work with BP instead. I'll work with other companies deploying charging station instead.
Yeah. Yeah, you almost have to be a certain type of person to work at Tesla these days because, of all the
Mhm.
crazy stuff. All right, Jesse C. Strand says, I believe you mentioned this in the past, but do you think Tesla would ever sell its FSD software and hardware to other manufacturers in the future? Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
And Elon's mentioned his, willingness to do that. And there's one manufacturer in particular that they're doing that with now,
Which
or
we
trying to,
speculated might be Ford. That was
might
our
be for.
main suspect, but we don't know. That's just speculation. But anyway, yeah, I mean, if it works, everyone's gonna want it. Like, it's as simple as that.
Right.
If it works and they look internally and like we're not even close to that, like if you think internally like you're 5 or 10 years away from FSD, which I think that's most people's assumption right now, for the most part, I think, and Tesla is like a year, 2 years away, and they do get it in that time, and they're still like 3 to 10 years away at that 3 to 8 years away at that point. uh what are you gonna do? You're gonna forfeit the industry, like the or are you gonna partner with them? This is what's gonna
Yeah, I
happen. I'm
mean,
not saying that.
I think that's Elon's big bet right now.
Yeah.
Over the next 3 years is like, all right, we're at the home stretch of full self driving. We're going to spend all of our resources and all of our extra effort getting to that finish line before anybody else does. And then
Hmm.
once we have it, like we kind of run the world. And basically, we have this piece of software and I guess some hardware as well, but like that's worth like $50,000 per, and theoretically they can just, you know, copy the software, and it's like every
Hmm.
new copy of the software is free. So every sale they make is like a $50,000 addition to a car. I mean, I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't know what having full self driving would be worth to anybody, but
Yeah.
um,
It's different per market. Like, it's going to be like a cost per mile thing at that point. And
probably,
but yeah, you can assign after that like an average mileage value per car, and that will give you a value per car. But yeah, it's a giant advantage. It's like Elon said, it's going to be one of the biggest value creation of all time, and it's true. It needs to happen. We
yeah.
see it happen.
All right. Can you please discuss what effect possible Trump presidency will have on EV and green energy in general? I feel like last week you dismissed it as a nothing burger.
Did
We
we?
did. I don't think so. I think Michelle did a story about how he invited, or maybe it was Jamie, a bunch of oil executives to Mar-a-Lago, and they had a
No, that was
meeting.
me.
Oh, that was you. They had a meeting, and supposedly Trump said, "I need $1 billion, and I'll get rid of whatever,"
Mhm.
which sounds like something he would do. Uh, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, for
Yeah,
me,
I don't know what exactly can he do. What he can do. That's my main problem. And so we're not dismissing it as a nothing burger, but it's like, I know that the president has some power, obviously, and it sounds like so right now the Republican, do they have both the Congress and the Senate right now, or
yeah, but kind of barely. I think maybe
yeah.
the Democrats have the Senate. I can't believe I can't remember that,
Yeah,
but
yeah. But anyway, this gonna change with the election potentially.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess it depends on all that. It depends on how much actual power he's gonna have. based on the control of the Republican of the Senate and the House. I know that there's some executive orders that he can do that will damage probably the EV industry and the green energy industry. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a positive for sure. I would prefer him not to win, but I think I think the U.S. When is it, the 24th of June? Whenever when is the debate plan? I think the U.S. is gonna get a shock from that debate.
How old people? How like just out of touch these guys are?
Oh yeah, I think it's gonna be,
What are we doing?
Biden. He's reading on the prompter right now and like saying pause when the prompter said pause. Like you cannot deny it anymore. You can be like pro Democrat, pro Biden. I'm a progressive and all that, but like you cannot ignore the
I mean, the only
mental
thing that
decline of the guy.
Biden has going for him is that the guy he's going up against is like almost as messed up as he is. Like,
yeah, in his own ways, in different ways,
and different and probably scarier ways.
But did I hear that Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to be on that debate too, which will make things even crazier?
I think he's not going to be in there. I mean,
okay,
the third candidate is a guy who got a worm in his brain and ate part of his brain. Like,
yeah, apparently that was a long time ago, and that's been fixed.
I don't know, man.
That's what we've been told.
It's like, really, this is the best we can do.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the U.S. is gonna get like I'm hoping that the U.S. is gonna get like an electrical shock from that. Like they're gonna see that debate.
Late.
Yeah, I know it's too late, but like maybe it's gonna just create something like big enough, a shock big enough that they're like, oh, we have to just change the system completely at this point. We cannot, we cannot be stuck in a situation like that again. I'm hoping, like, yeah, I'm an optimist at times.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Let's move on kind of quickly here. We're almost at the hour. Which brands do you think will be around in a few years? So what will happen to those broke manufacturers' cars support-wise? So I guess asking what is going to happen to the brands that die in the next few years.
Yeah. Fisker is kind of a good test, like it's like low volume test right now. Let's see like what happened when someone goes bankrupt. Like let's see what's the process like. You know what I think is interesting? Like there's this do-it-yourself or independent shops and all that. Like I think they're interesting for that. Like you can there's gonna be a nice market where people are buying these cars now, the Fiskers. Like some people are buying the Fiskers right now and they are planning to fix them themselves. I know this is a small market of people that can do that by themselves or anyway, but there's a community. Well, yeah, here's what I mean. There's a community of people that are like building resources to be able to maintenance and service this vehicle as a community, as an open source community, which I think is super cool. So I think there is that happening. Now, obviously, if a GM goes bankrupt and we're talking about millions of vehicles here, it's not ideal situation. I'm not saying that GM is going bankrupt, but like using them as an example, not an ideal situation, obviously.
Yeah, and I think they're almost too big to fail. I don't think the U.S. government will. I mean, we've done this test. Like,
yeah, we saw that before.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right, FSD. We're on what 12.4 or something.
0.3 right now, 0.4 next week.
Yeah. And it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Kame
still have a lot of problems on the highway, like a lot of slowdowns on the highway still. That's been my main issue so far.
All right, Skeptic, Kame AI is going to provide the self-driving system for Aptera. That's right. Honestly, most people would be thrilled just to have a decent level 2 system.
Yeah, and I mean, it's more than decent right now, the level 2 of Kame AI. So I mean, I've been a big fan of Aptera. I would really want them to produce that car, and if they do, I'm sure I'm going to be more than happy with a Kame AI system.
Yep. And the level 2 system is kind of the baseline of what people like right now. All right, Crimson Decade V12 still doesn't read street signs like local school zones and turn-only lanes, so there is no chance it's near ready. Yeah, I mean, that last, 10% or 5% or 3% of getting full self-driving ready is going to be the hardest part. Like the last little bit is going to be very difficult.
School zones I've never seen work. That's true. Turn-only lanes, though, like that's I cannot say if they can read it, like if the vision system can read it, but this is mostly in the navigation data, though. You know it if you put your navigation in, like you'll get the image when you approach an intersection where it's the turn only lane, and it's like tell you to get in it or not get in it and function of that. So I feel like they could use at least that data not to fall into that, make that an issue. But I would agree though that it needs to read it to the vision system need to see it. It needs to drive like a human that doesn't have a GPS could drive. Like
Right.
that's the true like mark of a self-driving system, I think.
All right. I read that there was only a 2% take rate after the free FSD month. I think Elon commented on that, saying it's much higher. So it's like probably
Yeah,
2.3% or something.
yeah. That's one of the thing where I always tell people, like the people that just believe everything Elon says, and you're like, okay, so that story is false. Look, that story is based on credit card data from I don't remember the provider, Yipit data, I think. So they apparently have the data, and they can show that it's on a sample of 3,500 people, which is like a decent size sample, but not perfect, obviously. And Elon said it's much more. That's not true. It's much more than that, but he didn't actually say what it was. I'm not sure that Elon knew what it was when he said that. Elon is the kind of person that he reads that is like, nah, that's not true. But he didn't actually like text his Tesla team before that and ask like, what's the actual take rate of FSD since the trial has been gone? Like, did he understand that Yipit was specifically about talking data of people that were on the trial, and if they bought it after the fact? I don't know. So yeah, I would take that with a grain of salt, but I'm not surprised that if it is 2%, if it's lower than 5, like I wouldn't be surprised, because um, it's not actually that useful yet. Like, uh, enhanced autopilot is useful. Autopilot is super useful. FSD is not that useful right now. So getting people to pay $100 a month or $8,000 in one go, it's not an easy task. Even
Yeah.
if V12 is fun, is great.
Uh,
It's not that useful.
all right. Last for now. Question: do you think any third-party charging companies will capitalize on the disbanding of Tesla supercharger team, and if so, which one?
Well, BP already raised their hands, and they were like, hey, if you had the Tesla supercharger project that was dropped by the company, you can reach out to us. We might take your location. We talked to the guys at Revel in New York that operates a lot of the big charging hubs in New York, and they were interested in picking up some of the lease that Tesla dropped when Elon fired the team. So there is that, and I think a lot of those companies are looking to hire some of the team that would let go too. So that's also good. Tesla is also hiring that team back, by the way.
That's fun.
Last I heard, they have like 10 people that have been hired back. So and then that's going to keep going for most likely. Though I'm sure there's a lot of people that not going to want to go back. But yeah, so I think it's going to result in a significant slowdown on Tesla supercharger deployment over the next year. I think Q2 was not going to be too bad, because there was a month where the team was there working, and there was also a lot of project already in the pipeline that are already in the hands of contractor, and Tesla told them to finish those. So I think that Q3 and Q4, especially Q3, probably going to be a big hit, and then Q4 Tesla's going to probably start ramping back up with the new team. So yeah, it's going to be a slowdown for a while, but hopefully by next year we go back to some kind of normalcy, because we need more superchargers, especially in North America.
Yep.
All right. That's it, everyone. I appreciate every single one of you that's been watching the show this week. You're a real one. If you do enjoy the show, you can press the like button, the thumbs up, whatever it is on the app you're watching. It helps the show a lot. It helps us push up the algorithm. It's free to do, and we appreciate when you do it. If you're listening to your podcast app right now, if you can give us a 5-star review, it helps the show a ton. Also free to do, and we appreciate when you do it. We're going to see you same time, same place next week.